So let's talk a little bit about Canada's government trying to pass Bill C-11. C-11 is pretty much a law that they can control what you say towards the government or a politician or a government entity via whatever source. But the big thing right now is the internet, right? Because we're all on the internet. So that being said, I don't want you to panic, but I don't want you to lose sight either. I just want you to be educated on the process, okay? So we all know that the Canadian government, especially the Liberals and Justin Trudeau, they feel they can pass whatever the laws they want in order to make things and life simple for them for the future to do what they want, right? That's part of dictatorship. Even though we're in a democratic society, Trudeau would love to have the dictatorship, right? So that being said, they're trying to pass this Bill C-11, and one of the biggest controlling options is the internet. So just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I work for one of the biggest telecommunications company in Canada. I sit on Tier 1 retention. That's my job. And I'm also a Microsoft Certified Systems Engineer, now called a Microsoft Professional or a Microsoft Expert. My forte is the 2001 platform, security and NT and stuff like that. My initial training, and I'm a heavy-duty mechanic by trade. I lived, born in New Brunswick. I lived in every province in Canada. I worked every province in Canada, except for Newfoundland and Ontario. Of course, I've been to every province. Of course, I've been to probably 40 states. I lived in Daytona Beach. I spent 17 years out west in Alberta. My kid is actually an Albertan. He was born in Medicine Hat. Of course, he's here with me in New Brunswick now. But anyway, that's the short side of it. I'm not a stranger to the internet infrastructure, the physics of it, and how it works in telephone, how it's linked to information transfers and video. Like it's such an important thing in our life. And tentatively right now, there's multiple companies in Canada that deal with the internet, and we're involved since day one building the infrastructure, like TELUS, SaskTel, Manitoba Telephone, Bell, Shaw, Eastlink, right? Like there's a ton of companies, and they spent their corporate cash, along with once in a while some government funding, to create the infrastructure for Canada to use something that's supposed to be free for everybody, the internet. So the internet actually is free, but to have a service provider make it flawless for you and make it easy, they charge you per month to use their infrastructure, right? So the internet itself, the entity is free. If you could find a way to get on the information highway without using their infrastructure, you could get on it for free, as long as you get an IP address and a subnet mask and all that jazz. So not to go off track, but I'm going to explain something. Now, when you get into a country that's a dictatorship, like a true dictatorship like China, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but that country has internet control over the population, okay? They have TV syndication, like news and stuff. They control that as well. And when I say control, they control what you send out to the best of their ability, but they definitely control what you see on that infrastructure. So when you watch the news, as much as we have fake news, and between the Donald Trumps and the Biden news and the Ukraine, Russian, thing that's going on right now, but we have the choice to look at different avenues of what we find proper to watch news on. The Chinese do not. The Chinese government says this is what you can watch, this is what you can send, this is what you can talk about, and that's a dictatorship. That's what happens. So if you've ever had the chance, or if you can find the chance to look at true Chinese news, like people that are peasants or people that don't have any money, that have basic information fed to them, which probably is about 30% of the population of China, which is one-third of the world's population. They think that in North America, like Canada and US, like we're very poor, we're starving in the street, our health care is terrible, you know, our government are tyrants. They never used to be, they are now. But anyway, they make us look like a place where their people don't want to be, right? You know, it's like putting a big movie screen around them and showing the world that is a terrible place, and China is such a great place, right? So now the point that I'm telling you that is that since day one, that infrastructure was built by that country, okay? So they don't have to make changes because since the first pole was put in the ground, since the first internet was passed out, they've had control, right? And they still do today. So in the civilized world, it's not so. It's not so. It's been constructed for the last 40 years. It's been around since the late 70s, right? A form of the internet, early 80s, then late 80s it got a little more public, and then you know, mid 90s was very prevalent, you know, to people that were computer savvy, and then as it got into the 2000s, it sort of it just a rock rolling down the hill gathering no moss, right? And now it's, if you take away someone's internet, it's detrimental. So for them to reverse, like our government to reverse it, there's a lot of things that would have to happen, okay? So this is why it's really not going to happen to the extent that they really wanted to. But, and I'm not saying don't keep your eyes on it, because it's also linked to the suppression of your opinion, right? And the ability for the government, if they don't like something that you say, or something's derogatory, that they can, you know, charge you, arrest you, or strip you of your rights, just like they did in Ottawa, right? So, you know, these big companies generate billions of dollars, just in Canada alone, billions, right? And what's attached to money? Investors, right? Who else is attached to money? Politicians, because they're investors too, right? So I don't think it's going to get anywhere besides the legislation side of it, where they control and they can, you know, charge you when the government deems something offensive or negative or against the the realm of what they're trying to do, right? And that's the bad part. Infrastructure-wise, you're not going to lose the internet next month, because like in the world there's like 6 or 8 main hubs, and outside of those big main hubs, like there's about 60,000 micro hubs, and they're all attached to all these entities that provide ISP, like internet service providers, right? So for them to control everything right now, if the infrastructure is not built presently, so what happens is you have something called an infranet, which is, for an example, you're in a call center or at your place of employment. Everybody there is like on a family-built internet where everybody can see everybody. There is a little bit of control, actually a lot of control within that, but you can share files within each other. There's an internal email system. You can send a quick message to somebody. The boss can sit back, watch that whole intranet, and control everything, see everything, right? Which is the perfect world for a corporation, due to liabilities and Privacy Act and all that stuff. And then that intranet sits on the internet, which is the World Wide Web, which is open, okay? So when information is sent, whether it's a video, TV feed, audio, email, or even to the point that you're on an internet website and you're browsing and you're playing a video from there, or you're reading information, right, or you're sending an email, it's called packet data transfer. Now, every single thing that you do on the internet uses a port. Like you may have seen, and I don't expect you to know it, and I'm just going to give you a short version, like port 95 for your email, or 463, right? You know what I mean? You have to have those ports enabled in order to make that email system work, right? And then for the internet, you type in all the time HTTP, okay? HTTPS, right? When you're using hypertext transfer protocol, that uses a certain port, right? And everything that you do within that, there's a tube that has tubes that has more tubes, right? So every tube has its own data packet style. Whether you're using audio, video, reading like looking at a picture. If you want to go to a web browser, you have to go through a certain port. Now, if that port goes to a website that has another server that you're maybe on Camfrog or Facebook, right? Or you're on ICQ for the older people, just for understanding. That uses a certain set of ports to do whatever the function of that website is, right? So it's a port within a port within a port. If all those ports link together, it puts it through a tunnel, like an information tunnel, and then you can use it, right? And that's how. And then there's a VPN. So for people that work from home, or you work with confidential information, or you just don't want anybody to know where you're going to, you can use something called a VPN, which is a virtual private network. So it takes all these ports and puts it, just for layman terms, through a non-passable, an intrusive, safe tube. So it takes all your other tubes and puts it into like a kryptonite tube, right? Where nothing can come in, nothing can go out besides what you want to put out, right? And it goes directly to a server that's intended to go to. In the perfect world, right? So anybody that's trying to get information, they go try to get in the tube, it just bounces off. That's what a VPN is, in short layman terms. So, for the government to pass the C-11, in their perfect world, to control everything, is impossible right now. You probably won't see it in your lifetime. Maybe little changes here and there, but what they can do, and they do it already, is that they have legislation that they pass that these social media sites and friendship sites or whatever it is, they've passed legislation that they have the right to make these companies pass information back to the government or the public safety or policing services, the CIA, RCMP, whatever, FBI. That anything that's put in there, whether it's a video, text, or they can take it and use it against you in court. So at one time you could be on the internet and say, fuck Billy Trudeau, right? I'm going to go kill John Smith, right? And it would fall on deaf ears. But the laws have changed over the last 10 years, and certain trials and cases have set precedents, so which means once they do something, even if it's not legislation, or a law, but it goes against you, lawyers or the Crown or whoever can pull it up as a case reference and go to the judge, say, back in 1996, we charged this guy with with a verbal threat to the president, and in 2001 we did it again, even though there's no legislation because the internet laws are very vague. We'd like you to take it into consideration that Eric Rogan made a threat to Joe Rogan, and we'd like to charge him. And the judge says, you know what? Okay, let's do it, right? So it's setting precedents, right? So that being said, the infrastructure side of it is not going to happen overnight. But the legislation that controls what comes off your tongue can pass tomorrow, right? And they, even without the law, if you look at Ottawa, they already did it. They took away your rights. Trudeau, refused to come and meet with the peaceful gatherers, or the terrorists as they call them, and everything went against what he wanted. So he sat in avoidance, He skipped the RCMP and the Ottawa Police and went right to the UN. So he took the control of the commander-in-chief of the military, bypassed him, went to the UN. The UN came in and cleaned up, right? And then the people that were part of the the ringleaders, as they call them, to the Leash and King, right? They sat in jail with no bail for something that was considered mischief. Mischief to me is coming out of a bar drunk, throwing a beer bottle and hits the pavement, and the cop's sitting there, and you give them the finger like this. They come over, and it's either disturbing the peace or mischief. Mischief is mean when you do something out of the ordinary to cause problems a little bit, right? So mischief, but it's not like death. No one dies or no one gets injured. It's just it's a nuisance, is what it is, right? So they've charged them with that and gave them no bail, right? Not even an offer like $1 million bail, just no bail. Then took your bank accounts. Anybody that supported it, they froze them, right? Made threats. Of course, that's been all turned around because the federal court judges say you can't fucking do that, right? So anyway, at the end of the day, and the banks put pressure on that because people were going to the banks pulling their money out. Maybe not as much as what it was saying on social media, but who controls things? Again, people with money. Who holds the money? The banks, right? So they're not one or two people, yeah, or maybe a company, shut them down, lock it for Canada Revenue, but to take Trudeau and all his henchmen to say, we're going to take this, freeze that, which means you're going to starve, can't pay your bills, you're going to lose your house. They didn't say that, but that's what happens when you have no money, right? And the bank's saying, fuck, you can't do that to our people. So, and including the Bank of Canada, right? So anyway, and these companies, again, they have investors, which are, some of them are politicians, some of them are lawmakers, they're the shakers and makers of stuff. And you got people like Bill Gates, the Gates Foundation, you've got Elon Musk, Mr. Information himself. There's so many people that are linked to the internet, they're not just going to let it get taken away. We're in a tentatively, we're still in a democratic society. So I don't want you to be, the reason I'm doing this video, I don't want you to be afraid, but I don't want you to lose track, right? So do not, or do what you can to make sure that the C-11 doesn't pass, but don't be frightened to voice your opinion about it because you think you're going to get kiboshed by the government. Because it's not going to happen. If you keep your tongue clean and don't be like me and type everything that comes off the top of your head, which I have a bad habit of doing that. Don't make any physical threats, right? Show your displeasure. Show your displeasure to the party involved or to the bills that are trying to be passed. If you do it in a gentleman or a woman-like manner, I know sometimes it's hard, and I'm the last guy that should be saying it because I've sent more fuck you Trudeaus directly to Trudeau, and you guys can see it, whether it's my Facebook page or my entity page is, I can't say names because there's rats on here, and via Twitter, I irritate him as much as I can because I want him to know there's 37 million people in this country, and at least half of them think like me, but don't say what they think. But I do, and I want him to know that I will, if I have to stand alone and be that thorn in his side, I will, right? Because I'm not happy, right? I'm not a bad person, never hurt anybody, no criminal records. I've been working for, since I've been 13 years old. I have a college education. I'm not like a genius, but I'm not stupid. And I see the lies that they do in their fascist ways. And it's not conspiracy theories, right? I read stuff. I watch my own news. I gather my own information, make my own decisions, right? And I do watch all the syndicated news. Half of it's for entertainment reasons. I watch the House of Commons and watch these grown adults bicker and fight, shove and push and call each other names like a bunch of children fighting over a chocolate bar in a schoolyard, right? And then the spoiled kid in the schoolyard, he just takes it, doesn't care about anybody else, goes in the corner and eats it while everybody else suffers, right? It's just a big gong show. So anyway, the Bill C-11, it's not going to be fully functional the way that they want it to be. Infrastructure-wise, is friggin' impossible. But anything that's not physical, anything that's that's verbal, they can control it, whether you like it or not. They can't control what you say, But once you say it, they can control what happens, whether it's on Facebook or Twitter or whoever, right? If it's on video or you type it and it comes off your computer, if that bill passes, a lot of these social media sites are going to get very quiet very soon, right? And that's what I don't want, because we as a democratic society, whether it's Canada or the U.S., we deserve to be heard. Whether Justin Trudeau wants to hide or Joe Biden's too demented to remember the last conversation, or when it's time to change his diaper, or whatever the scenario is, the American and Canadian public deserve to be heard. And we have to use the internet, which is the most powerful piece of media that's shareable in the world, right? Because the world look what happened. The Freedom Convoy came out west. They did it not for the freedom of everybody, just so you guys know. They did it so they could cross the border without vaccination passports. That was the initial drive of that convoy. And because there's so many Canadians that would like to say something, there's some that just won't say shit with a mouthful. Other people would love to say something, and if you were there in their town, they would say it to you. But we're in the largest landmass in the world, right? And everybody, all the problems sit in Ottawa. They took advantage of the situation that tentatively I can say something, but nobody listens. But now that the convoy's going, I'm going to stand on their coattails, and I'm going to make this about me and my family and my other community members, and make it heard. So it was like a rolling snowball on a sticky snow day, right? As it left BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, rolled in Ontario, a ball like this was just out of control. The small fringe minority, and that shows the stupidity of Justin Trudeau, right? Because he only sees what he wants to see, and he doesn't believe that anybody's going to stand up against him, right? Because that's what he's used to. He called that snap election, last year, and it was at the point where everybody was getting COVID pays, everybody was afraid and unsure, mandates, the big scare, it went from COVID-19 to the Delta virus, which was going to kill the world. That lasted 3 weeks and disappeared, went into Omicron. That was the next big thing, flu-like symptoms. You got the shits and a runny nose, right? So, and everything in the last 3 calendar years with this pandemic, and don't get me wrong, COVID is real. Let's just face the facts. But just like everybody else, anybody that's a shit disturber, the governments and the people with money pushed it so the general population, right, ran scared, and not that they had control legally, but tentatively, because everybody ran scared, they just did what they wanted, right? They made rules and mandates and guidelines that just fed their pockets. So anyway, I don't want to get into it because I could do another 2 hours of this video. So the C-11, it's not going to come to fruition to the full role that they want, but if they even pass legislation that verbally traps your tongue, we're screwed, right? Anyway, keep your eyes on your fries. Make a push to your MLA. Make it known right now while there is no C-11 with your displeasure. And don't worry about it too much, because we still have other problems that we haven't finished yet. And that's our, freedom and charter rights that's been stripped from us. And the biggest thing that needs to happen, whether C-11 gets in or not, because you can always overturn it, it's either one of two things. We vote out Justin Trudeau with a lack of confidence vote, or when the election comes up, make it look like he's not even on the ballot, right? And even the supporters, even in his own caucus, are showing a lot of doubt, right? Because he's lied, been two-faced, changed the stories, looked after everybody else in the world except for us. Arrested veterans at the Veterans Memorial, lied about the violence and everything that happened in Ottawa, right? Sided with people that didn't sleep for 5 days, instead of siding with people that were there for 5 days that were losing their homes, losing their families, their jobs, right? Get affected. And it's not 90% of the people that get vaccinated that get sick, but there's some out there, right? Some guys took heart attacks, some got sick, some had blood clots. Is it as big as they say it is? No, because there's a lot of dramatism. But it does happen. So that being said, the right for us to agree or not agree to a medical procedure, including injections, should be up to the people that they're being offered to, right? So anyway, I'm going to end it at here. Keep your eyes on the Bill C-11, on the Canadians, and if there's anything in the States and the same reference being passed, keep your eyes on it, right? Don't let it run your life, but keep your eyes on it. Anyway, Eric Rogan, hope everybody has a great day.